I am 92 years old. I have buried my wife. I have buried my best friend. I have buried two of my doctors. I am not telling you that for sympathy. I am telling you that because I am the last man standing in a room that used to be full, and the room gets quiet. You don't expect that. When you are 30, 40, 50, you think the noise just keeps going. The dinner parties, the arguments about nothing, the neighbors whose names you sort of remember. Then one morning you wake up and the noise is gone. And in that silence you start to hear something you spent a lifetime drowning out. The truth. I wasted years, decades, on things that were never mine, on a version of life that somebody else drew up on a chalkboard before I was old enough to disagree. I am 92. I do not have the luxury of being polite about this, and neither do you. They handed you a map the day you were born, not a real map, a set of instructions dressed up to look like wisdom. Go to school, keep your head down, get the degree, find the company, work the years, buy the house with the two-car garage, smile at the Christmas party, don't cause trouble, wait for the pension, then rest. That was the deal. Nobody asked if you agreed to it. Nobody slid a contract across the table. They just started the clock and told you to run. And you ran. I ran. We all ran. The employer needed your best years, your sharpest mind, your strongest back. So they built a system that collected those things before you were wise enough to protect them. They called it a career. They gave it a ladder. They made you believe that climbing was the same thing as living. It was not. The bank needed your fear. Fear keeps a man paying. A frightened man with a mortgage does not quit, does not complain, does not walk away from a job that is eating him alive. He just tightens his tie and catches the early train every single morning. The television needed your evenings, your weekends, your imagination. It fed you other people's adventures so you would stop noticing you weren't having your own. You sat on the couch night after night watching strangers live. This was not an accident. This was architecture, carefully built, deliberately maintained. A machine designed to keep a man just comfortable enough that he never burns it down. And the most dangerous part, it felt normal because everyone around you was inside the same machine, pulling the same levers, wearing the same gray suits, telling the same lie to their children at the dinner table. This is just how life works, son. No, this is how their life works. Yours was always supposed to be different. You just never got around to building it. I want to tell you about Raymond. Raymond was my closest friend for 53 years. We met on a factory floor in 1961. Two young men with sawdust on our boots and our whole lives sitting in front of us like an unopened box. Raymond was the careful one. That was always his word. Careful. He saved carefully. He invested carefully. He maintained his lawn with the kind of dedication most men reserve for religion. He never missed a mortgage payment, never took a sick day he didn't earn, never spent money on something he couldn't justify in a ledger. He was going to retire at 65. That was the plan. That was always the plan. And he did. They gave him a gold watch at the farewell lunch, shook his hand, called him an asset to the company. Somebody brought a sheet cake with his name written in blue frosting. Raymond smiled the whole afternoon. I watched him drive away from that parking lot in his sensible car, heading home to the life he had carefully, patiently, obediently waited for. He was dead at 68, a Tuesday morning, sitting in his kitchen chair, cup of coffee still warm on the table. 3 years, that is what Raymond got. 3 years of the life he spent 4 decades earning. He never took the fishing trip to Montana. He talked about Montana for 30 years. Had a folder in his desk drawer with magazine clippings of rivers and mountains and wooden cabins. The folder was still in the drawer. He never called his son David. They had argued about something foolish in 2003. Raymond always said he would call when the time was right. The time was never right, and then there was no time left. I stood at his graveside on a cold gray morning holding that gold watch because his wife didn't know what else to do with it. It was still ticking. Raymond wasn't. That is the lie at its most brutal. It doesn't just steal your years, it steals your Montana. It steals your phone call to David. It takes the thing you were saving for last and buries it in the ground right alongside you. Don't be Raymond. Please, don't be Raymond. All right, I am not here to just make you feel sad about Raymond. Sadness without action is just another way to waste a Tuesday. So I am going to give you 3 tests. Not suggestions, not gentle prompts from a self-help book with a sunrise on the cover. Tests. Do them today. Do them on a piece of paper with a pen, not on your phone, not in an app, a real piece of paper that you have to look at. The first test is the deathbed test. Close your eyes. You are 89 years old. You are in a narrow bed. The room smells like antiseptic and old flowers. You have maybe 3 days left. What is in the room with you? Not objects, not furniture. People, which faces are there? Which faces are absent because you never made the call? Which relationships did you let die because you were too busy, too proud, too distracted by a screen? Write those names down, then go fix it. Today, not next week. The second test is the stranger's life test. Imagine a complete stranger reads your calendar from the last 30 days. Every meeting, every commitment, every hour accounted for. Would they look up from that calendar and say, this man is living his life? Or would they say, this man is serving someone else's? Be honest, the paper cannot lie to you. The third test is the unfinished list test. Write down 3 things you have been postponing for more than 2 years. Not errands, not obligations, dreams, trips, conversations, creative work, the novel sitting in a cardboard box, the instrument gathering dust in the corner, the country you always said you would visit before you got too old. Look at that list. That list is your real life, the one you keep locking in a cupboard while you attend to the performance of living. Now ask yourself one honest question. What exactly are you waiting for? A better time is not coming. A more convenient season does not exist. The stars will not align. The kids will not suddenly need you less. The job will not suddenly demand less of your soul. This is the time. You are holding it right now. If you took that test and something on that list made your chest tight, if you felt that specific ache of a life half lived, leave a comment below. Tell me what is on your unfinished list. I am 92 years old and I am still reading every single one because I need to know I am not talking to an empty room. I want to tell you what I know now. What 92 years of living finally teaches a stubborn man who spent most of those years being wrong. True wealth is not in the bank. I know men who died with 7 figures in an account nobody knew the password to. Cold men, efficient men. Men whose children spoke at their funeral in the careful, measured tone you use for someone you respected but never quite reached. That is not wealth, that is inventory. Real wealth is a Tuesday afternoon that belongs entirely to you. No alarm, no agenda, no performance review waiting at the end of it. Just you and the particular slant of afternoon light coming through a window, a cup of something warm, the specific silence of a life that is actually yours. I had one of those afternoons once, 1984, late October. My wife Eleanor was in the garden pulling up the last of the summer tomatoes. I was sitting on the back step with a cold beer watching her work. Nobody needed anything from me. The phone wasn't ringing. The bills were paid. The world was just quietly existing around us like it had all the time in the universe. I didn't know that was wealth. I thought wealth was something you built toward, something waiting at the finish line with a ribbon across it. But that afternoon on the back step, that was the finish line. I just didn't recognize it. True freedom is not retirement. Retirement is just exhaustion with better lighting. True freedom is the ability to say no to things that cost you your soul, the ability to walk away from a room that diminishes you, the ability to spend a morning doing something that produces nothing measurable and feel completely at peace with that. A child knows this instinctively. Watch a child on a Saturday morning with nowhere to be. No productivity, no optimization, just pure unscheduled existence. We were all that child once. Then the machine got hold of us. And somewhere between the first day of school and the 40th year of employment, we forgot what it felt like to simply exist without justifying it. The men I have known who lived well, truly lived, were not the richest. They were not the most decorated. They were the ones who figured out early enough that time is the only currency that actually matters. Not dollars, not titles, not the square footage of the house. Hours, unscripted, unhurried, yours. And the brutal arithmetic of a life is this: you have a finite number of those hours sitting in a jar. Every morning you reach in and take one out. You do not know how many are left in the jar. You never know. All you know is that the jar is not bottomless. Spend accordingly. I am 92 years old. I want you to really sit with that number for a moment. 92. I have watched the moon from a hospital window 3 separate times, thinking it might be the last moon I ever see. I have held the hand of a dying woman who was also my best friend for 41 years. I have stood at more graves than I have attended weddings. I am not frightened anymore, but I am urgent. There is a difference. Fear is what the machine uses to keep you running. Urgency is what an old man feels when he watches a young one sleepwalking toward the same cliff he already walked off. So let me be as plain as I know how to be. You are going to die, not eventually, not someday in the abstract, comfortable distance. You are going to die, and the calendar between now and that morning is shorter than you are allowing yourself to believe. I know that is uncomfortable. Good. Uncomfortable is the only thing that ever moved a human being to change. Raymond was uncomfortable in that job for 20 years. But the discomfort of staying was quieter than the terror of leaving. So he stayed, and he waited, and he got 3 years and a sheet cake with his name in blue frosting. Do not let that be your story. Close this video when it ends. Not the laptop, the distraction. Close the part of your life that is running on autopilot while the real thing sits in a drawer like Raymond's Montana folder. Make the call you have been rehearsing for 3 years. Book the ticket you keep almost buying. Walk into the room where the person you love is sitting and say the thing you always assume there will be more time to say. There is a version of you that does none of this. That version watches this video, feels something real move through their chest, and then opens another tab, and another year passes, and the jar gets lighter. I cannot follow you out of this room. I cannot sit across from you at your kitchen table and make you do what needs to be done. I am 92 years old in a dim room full of photographs, but I can tell you this one last thing. The life you actually want is not a fantasy. It is not waiting for a different economy or a better season or a younger body. It is waiting for you to stop asking for permission. Nobody is coming to unlock the gate. You have had the key the entire time. Now put down whatever is heavy that was never yours to carry and go live the thing before the clock does what clocks always do. If this hit something real inside you, if some part of you recognized your own life in these words, leave a comment. Tell me one thing you are going to do differently starting today. I will read every single one. Because at 92, knowing that these words reach somebody who still has time left to use them, that is the only thing I have left worth doing.